Hey everybody, it's Kira with Bookstaglamkira, and I'm here to recap my reading for the month of May. I read 9 books total and going in no particular order. The first one I wanted to talk about with you is called Death of the Author by Okarafor. I think that's how you say it, Okarafor. This was very generously gifted to me by the publisher. Look how beautiful this is. I just love the cover and the sprayed edges. And a little bit about this book, it's actually kind of a story within a story. So underneath the dust jacket is actually the story that the female main character is writing in the book. So really cool. I love that aspect of using the book to show the book that she's writing. Anyway, so this was a book that wasn't even on my radar. This was another perfect example of how the publishers kind of got it in front of me, and I enjoyed it. It was definitely something that was a little bit out of my comfort zone, just because it's a genre bender. There's kind of a what I would call like a contemporary fiction side where we're learning about Zelu, who is the female main character, and kind of going about her life, but then also there are chapters about the story, like I shared, that Zelu is writing. And the story is more of a fantasy futuristic, but then the two worlds kind of intertwine, they come together, and which makes it really interesting and really creative. For me as a reader, I kind of knew this going in, and that was that I was going to prefer more of Zelu's real life story instead of the one that she was writing, just because I don't tend to, I certainly read fantasy, but not a whole lot, and usually I lean more towards cozy fantasy or more of a magical realism aspect there. So anyway, Zelu, we start out, she is a Nigerian American with a disability. She gets around via a wheelchair, and pretty much in the first 2 chapters, we find out that she has been let go from her job. She's an inspiring writer, but she's got a family that is not very supportive of those dreams and aspirations. But she ends up, she's writing this story, and it's a story of overcoming obstacles. There's definitely some racial inequality and discrimination based on disabilities. So there's some heavy topics here, but also this interesting concept of futuristic thinking where she has this, it's almost like her, I would say, her kind of superhero self and what she could do in a futuristic land to overcome her disability. So really cool from that aspect. But again, for me, I had a harder time connecting with the fantasy side. So I did end up giving this 3.5, 4 stars. Thank you again to the publisher. This came from William Morrow Publishing. The next book I want to talk about, I actually got from the library, and that was the second book in the series from Vera Wong. This one was called Vera Wong's Guide to Snooping on a Dead Man. And if you haven't read the first Vera Wong, I would say there are references to the first book. So if you're wondering if maybe you can pick this one up without reading the first one, I think you can. You just might feel a little disconnected from those references, those repeat characters that kind of make little guest appearances. They're not huge characters, but I definitely would say I wish I would have reread the first Vera Wong before going into this one. So this is for readers that enjoy kind of more of the cozy mystery. It's not gory, it's not hardcore, and it's this sweet little old lady that has a tea shop, and she thinks she is so good at snooping, which she is. I mean, she's really great at kind of discovering everybody's secrets and getting to know them while also having some found family there, and being able to help out her community. So for this one, just kind of comparing to her first one, there is more of topics around influencers and social media and phishing scams and that kind of thing. Like like there's an influencer party, and so it's definitely got more of the younger crowd in it. But like I said, there's some characters that are coming back around that were in the first one. So for me, I didn't like love the whole influencer social media piece. I get where she was going with it. So for me, it was just a 3-star. But again, it was a great little cozy mystery, really cute. Always loved Vera. The next one that I wanted to talk about, I got from my book of the month, and that was Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaughey. If her name sounds familiar, she does have a few others. I've read Migration by her and Once There Were Wolves, which also was a book of the month, I believe. Charlotte is really good with writing kind of an atmospherical fiction novel. She focuses a lot on kind of the natural parts of the land and just really paints the picture for you on setting the scene for you with her stories. So this particular one, we're introduced to a family and they discover a woman that has washed up on shore. So there's definitely a mystery to it, not only about who this woman is, how she got there, how she survived and made it up to shore, but also there are some questionable things about this family. They're living on this island all by themselves. I think they only get visited every so many weeks with supplies and things that they need. So understanding why they're there, what happened that they are the only ones there, but then so on both sides there's a mystery. I will say it's kind of a slow buildup, but it is emotional, and there's some children on the island. I personally did not get drawn into this one as much as I did with Once There Were Wolves. But again, I didn't hate it. It was just more, the other one worked for me a little bit better. And I actually, even though I have the physical copy, I did end up listening to some of it. Because again, I love hearing kind of the atmosphere and how that gets set up in the book. So I ended up giving this 4 stars. And then the next book I want to talk about is an author that we see a lot from. His name is Fredrik Backman, and this is his latest called My Friends. Fredrik Backman, if you haven't read by him, he has a very unique writing style. Some people, he's not for them. He's very, it's unique. And so I feel like when you read Fredrik Backman, you have to go in with an open mind and just see if he's for you or not. So for this particular one, again, this was also a book of the month pick, and there's a lot going on, so it's really hard for me to summarize this, but we have kind of a dual point of view. We have present day, where we have a female main character named Louisa, I believe is her name, and she's starting with nothing. But what I mean by that is I think it's a day or two before she turns 18 and is able to basically flee the foster care system. It has not been kind to her. She has not successfully found a family that will adopt her, and she truly has nothing except for the backpack on her back. And so a day or two before her birthday, she flees, she escapes, and she comes in contact with somebody that will change her life forever. I will say there's certain things that she holds on to, memories and a specific postcard that's really interesting, just kind of how this all came about and how it ties to the rest of the story. And then the other point of view is it's almost storytelling of the past. So you have someone in present day that's has come in contact with Louisa, and he is sharing his childhood story, and that's how we get that other timeline, other point of view, which I thought was really interesting. And so that other point of view, he's telling the story about how a piece of art came to be because he knew the artist. And the piece, it has some hidden things within the piece. It looks like just some water to the naked eye, but in reality, there are some friends that are hidden amongst the water. And we get a lot of character development in that, understanding the backstories of all of these kids, these individuals that are hidden within the painting, as well as how the painting came to be. You know, it's not just somebody in an art studio, but there's a lot of emotion and depth, and I love that. Again, this isn't going to be for everybody, but man, if you are a Frederick Bachman fan and you get his writing, what a powerful novel. I just can't say enough about this, but I also don't want to say too much because I don't want to give away kind of the key pieces here. And so again, I could talk about this all day long, but what I'm going to say is this was a 5-star read for me. Check it out and see if Frederick Bachman's for you as well. The next book that I want to talk about is another one that I got from William Morrow Publishing by Mary Alice Monroe, and that's Where the Rivers Merge. It is a historical fiction novel, and I will say I did find out after reading this that it is in a series. This is the first one in the series, and they just referenced the second one. I'm not sure if it's just going to be the dual or if there's going to be more books. So again, historical fiction, it has a dual timeline. The first one is in the early 1900s, and then the second one is 80 years later in the 1980s. Both timelines we hear from our female main character named Eliza. We kind of grow up with her. So in 1908, I believe is what it is. She is a young girl. She's working on and being raised on her family's land, family's farm, and running the business with her dad and her brother and mom. But she's very, very independent, strong young woman that really knows the lay of the land and understands what her family's farm needs and just really seems to know the business well. And so you can tell that she's just trying to kind of almost assume the male-dominated role, when in reality she's then being forced into more of the women's responsibilities on the farm. And she's not here for that at all. She also has a young friend that she just doesn't understand the societal norms that come with this time period. She doesn't understand why her friend has to do the work around the house and not be able to get the same education as her. And so obviously we have some racial challenges that she doesn't want to accept, that everybody can't have the same education, and that she can't have a friendship just because of the color of her skin. So again, really, really strong topics of gender and racial inequality in this book. And then we fast forward to 1988, and Eliza, the female main character, is obviously, she's lived her life, she's been on the farm, she's been on the land, and she's grown and continued to do what she does so well. But she is potentially being ripped of her land and being removed from the board that oversees the land. So a lot of suspense and challenging times while having historical elements in it. So I really did enjoy this. I appreciate getting this from the publisher because I wouldn't have read it had they not put it in front of me. Again, that was William Morrow, and I gave this 4 stars. I read a couple e-arcs this past month. I read the new one by Annabelle Monaghan or Monaghan. I need to check to see how to say that. But she's a pretty popular summer romance read author. This was I believe my 4th one by her, and this was called It's a Love Story. Again, it's a great like summer romance. It wasn't anything too amazing to me. This was probably my least favorite out of all of hers, but if you're looking for just a light summer read, I would recommend any of her books. For this one, for me, I didn't quite connect with the present day, kind of the jobs that they had. We have a male and female main character. I apologize that I don't remember their names, but they work in kind of video production and videographer maybe. So they're trying to figure out the next best show for the company that they work for. And so from there, there's this weird concept of like the female main character was a child star. And so they're trying to bring that past into present day, and it just didn't connect for me. But what I did love about this was we go and we see the male main character's family. We go to this small town community, and that's what really did it for me. I just loved getting to know all the characters in the family and seeing the dynamic, just the interactions, especially with his father and the female main character. It was really lovely. So I liked that piece. But again, nothing amazing for me, so I gave it 3 stars. Another one that I read that I got from the publisher was the latest by Julie Clark, who wrote, I think it's called Her Last Flight and The Last Flight, and she wrote another one, and I enjoyed both of those. This one was called The Ghostwriter, and it had an interesting concept. So it was more of a thriller suspense. We are introduced to, I believe her name is Olivia, and we find out that she is a ghostwriter, and that's what she does. She writes the stories of typically celebrities or athletes, something like that, to help tell their memoirs, tell their life stories. And so we find out that her dad is actually a well-known author that is said to, well, he's not said to, there are rumors that he murdered his 2 siblings when they were younger. Basically, his 2 siblings were murdered. They never found who did it, and he is the only sibling that survived. He does have an alibi, and so I actually really enjoyed this story because, again, I don't think I'm giving it away, but basically the 2 come back together. The daughter then writes or attempts to ghostwrite the memoir of her famous father, and he's ready to tell his story. He's at the end of his life and he's ready to come clean, I guess. But it's an interesting concept because part of the reason he wants to tell this story now is because he has recently been diagnosed with some form of dementia, which includes some memory loss. Well, then we get into these interactions between the 2 characters, and it's, well, does he really not remember, or does he not want to tell us? And even if he says something, is it the truth, or is it his mind just trying to paint a picture of what actually happened? So I loved that element in combination with some other things. I loved the use of, they use like a camera. A camera is referenced a lot from when the kids were young, and there's diaries. So like the sister kept a diary. So just all of these different tools for piecing together not only the story and the narrative of his memoir, but also identifying what is the truth and what's not. So if you can't tell, I really did enjoy this one, and it's been a while since I loved a thriller this much. And there's also a really nice twist. So right when you think you're getting going, they hit you with the twist. So I gave this 4.5 stars. I don't know what would have made it 5. I feel like I'm just really particular about thrillers. It really just has to knock my socks off and be super amazing. And maybe it deserves a 5 and I'm just being too particular. But needless to say, go check it out. It just came out recently. And again, that's Julie Clark. It's called The Ghostwriter. The last 2 that I have are, this one was picked by a book club of mine. It's called Happy Land by Dolan Perkins Valdez. I did not realize this at the time when I picked up the book, but this is the author of Take My Hand. That was her debut, and I loved that. I gave it 5 stars. So like I said, this is a historical fiction, and it's about, it's set in North Carolina, South Carolina. It we're introduced to some slaves that are trying to escape to freedom. They're heading north from South Carolina, and they basically, I don't know how, but they were aware of a female, a widow that was, running a farm and running some land by herself and needed some help. And so they grew to know this widow, and they farmed her land, they helped her, they worked for her. And throughout their time with her, they actually got their way to freedom, and they were able to purchase some land, which later became known as a kingdom of the Happy Land. This is based on a true story, so this was really interesting to me. This is another perfect example of how, historical fiction, even though it's fiction, it really does teach you a lot about history, especially in an own voices side of things, that can open your mind to parts of history that we didn't necessarily get taught. And so the particular characters in here, there's family members. It kind of talks about how this one family came to be the quote unquote king and queen of the kingdom, and how they made decisions and the struggles that they were faced, and how even after you work so hard and you build everything up, that in the blink of an eye it can be taken away from you. So again, another powerful historical fiction novel. Check her out. Again, I've loved both of her books, and I'm excited to talk with her soon. We're going to do an author chat. I gave this 4 stars. And last but not least, this one, oh my gosh, emotional roller coaster. I will be thinking about this for a long time. The Bright Years. This was a Book of the Month pick, debut by Sarah Damoff. I can't even tell you how emotional and how impactful this book is, and it is less than 300 pages. It just blows my mind that she is able to get to the grit and to the roots of all these devastating, this grief, this emotion with this family in less than 300 pages. So this is this is a family drama, but it's a lot more than that. There are all kinds of elements that are covered in here. We get a little bit of adoption. There's a lot of grief. There's a little bit of certain types of addiction. Alcoholism is a huge one in this. So I will say, and not just this book, but any book for that matter, is not for everyone. So just know this. If those are triggers for you, tread lightly. It might not be for you. But at the same time, I think this is really eye-opening because, you may have a little bit of an understanding of alcoholism, but it really gets to where I feel like I learned a little bit more from this. And I feel like you can understand individuals more that are struggling with alcoholism. It's not a light switch on and off. It can't change overnight. There's a lot of work that comes with trying to overcome that disease. And so, anywho, we have a family that we're following, and we have a couple of different point of views. For the most part, it's in I would say the mom's point of view, the gal that's the mom, for the majority of the story. We do follow them as they grow up and grow into adulthood and whatnot. But I don't know what to say. You got to read it. I actually read some of it, and then I had a long car ride and I listened to it, and even the audio was super impactful. You could just feel the emotion as you're listening to this story. So anyway, a lot of elements of alcoholism. I also have to say, I'm still thinking about that first chapter in this book. The first chapter just paints this picture, and when you end the chapter, you just have to know. You have to know what happens to those characters. You have to know where it goes from there. So it brings you in and sucks you in and gets you hooked from the very first chapter. So go check her out. Again, Sarah Damoff, this is her debut. She is working on another novel, I believe, to come out in 2026. I can't wait to hear more from her. 5 stars. That is my wrap up for my May reads. Sorry, I got really emotional and really passionate about these, but I hope that through this you're able to find some new reads that you like. I'd love to hear what were your top reads for the month, see if there's anything I need to add. Also, if you've read any of these, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are and if you were impacted in the same way, if you had the same feelings as I did. Let me know in the comments and like and share. Thank you.